So this sequence of videos will look at what Kripke has to say about description theories of reference. Now, in class, we looked at his explanation for why such theories are very desirable. Recall that they do a number of good things. One, and perhaps most importantly, they explain how it is that we manage to have thoughts about the world, how it is that language manages to hook onto the world. Two, they solve Frege's first puzzle, that the idea that A statements of the form A equals B can be informative. And third, they explain our reference to apparently non-existent entities, such as Pegasus. Those are all good reasons why someone might want to adopt a description theory of reference, I think the first being most important. And Kripke acknowledges those reasons, but in this sequence of videos, we're not going to talk about those reasons. Instead, we'll do the following. First, we'll go over Kripke's summary of the description theory of reference. Then we'll look at his argument against it. Then we'll look at his argument against the description theory of natural kind terms. We'll then sort of do some theorizing that goes beyond what Kripke says, looking at some later accounts of how to think about what Kripke says by comparing traditional theories of modality, necessity, and possibility to what you might think of as Kripke's theory. And then we'll look at a couple of applications of Kripke's theory to philosophical problems. So we're going to start now by looking at Kripke's summary of the description theory of reference. We're going to focus on names here. So Kripke suggests that we can capture the description theory of reference with 6 theses and then a kind of added clause that places a constraint on those theses. So what we'll do is we'll walk through each of the 6 theses, and then after walking them through, we'll go back through them again and see what Kripke has to say about them. That is what he has to say that's negative about them. We've already looked at the sort of positive aspects of the picture during class. Okay, so thesis 1, to every name or designating expression X, there corresponds a cluster of properties, namely the family of those properties phi, such that A believes phi X. So here you have someone who says Barack Obama is tall. Barack Obama is a designating expression, a name. Now remember, designating expressions include not only names, but also definite descriptions like the one and only author of Waverly or the person who wrote Huckleberry Finn or whatever. But we're just going to focus on names. So you have a name like Barack Obama is tall. Here's the idea. When this person says Barack Obama is tall, being a competent user of the name, this person associates some properties. That's what phi is standing for, those properties. And X is, of course, the name. And A here is the agent, the person doing the believing. The person associates some properties with Barack Obama. That is, there's some sort of description the person could in principle articulate, but at least sort of is accessing when the person deploys the name Barack Obama. Now, this thesis 1 requires that if the name Barack Obama is a name in Green's idiolect, then remember, that's your own personal language, your I language, your internal language, the one that belongs to you. Then Green must associate some description with Barack Obama, the person here, not the name, such that Green believes a sentence such as the one given in the belief bubble above. So Green has to believe something like this in order to be a competent user of the name Barack Obama. Now, what I want you to notice first and foremost is that this is a thesis about the psychological states of this agent. It's not a thesis about metaphysics, at least not straightforwardly, because it doesn't say that X, that is the referent of the term X, the referent of Barack Obama, actually has any of those properties. It just says that the agent believes the person has those properties. So in the example here, thesis 1 does not require that Barack Obama is the 44th president, is the first African-American president, was born in Hawaii, or any other such thing. Thesis 1 only requires that A believes all of that. Okay. Second, one of those properties, or some conjointly, are believed by A to pick out some individual uniquely. Now you might notice straight away, this is again a thesis about what A believes. The person might think this: I believe that Barack Obama and only Barack Obama has this specific set of properties I just gave. Now this thesis requires that Green believes that there is some subset of these properties. The subset could be all of them, but it could also be a proper subset, a smaller set of them, that nobody except Barack Obama has. So Barack Obama satisfies them uniquely. And again, notice that this is a thesis about the psychological states of the agent. It does not say that some of those properties pick out some individual uniquely, or that all of them do. It just says that A believes as much. Okay. Now, thesis 3. If most or a weighted most of the phi's are satisfied by a unique object y, then y is the referent of x. Now, everybody was in class this week, and we talked about the weighted most and what that means and why that's important and how that relates to, for example, Searle's critique of Frege and his sort of reinvigoration of Frege's theory, or I don't know, let's say his version of Frege's theory, which is the cluster version of Frege's theory. So we're not going to talk about that here. We're just going to simplify by ignoring the weighted most. We could even ignore most, but let's just say if most or of these properties are satisfied by a unique object, then that object is the referent of that name. So this thesis requires that any individual that has most of the properties on Green's list is Barack Obama, provided that nothing else has those same properties. So you could think of this thesis as saying that those properties fix the reference of the name. Notice that this isn't a thesis about the psychological states of A. The thesis does not say anything about what A believes. It's rather a thesis about the referent of the name. In our example, this is a thesis about the name Barack Obama, not what Green believes. So, presuming that the properties in the green box are the key ones, 3 requires that the man in the picture is the referent of Obama, if he has these properties and no one else does. Thesis 4. If the vote yields no unique object, then X does not refer. So 4 implies that the name Barack Obama refers to something only if exactly one individual has most of the properties on Green's list. So if 2 people have the key properties, then this name doesn't refer. So this is like the uniqueness condition. The idea is that it's built into names that they can't refer to more than one thing. Notice that this is not a thesis about the psychological states of A. The thesis does not say anything about what A believes. It's rather a thesis about the nature of names. In our example, it's a thesis about the name Barack Obama, not what Green believes. 5. The statement, if X exists, then X has most of the phi's is known a priori by the speaker. This is like the thesis that you can access senses a priori. That is, that the statement binding a name to its sense is knowable a priori. This thesis requires that if Barack Obama is a name in Green's idiolect, then Green must know a priori if Barack Obama exists, then Barack Obama has most of the following properties, is the fourth US president, and so on. Notice that this is a thesis about both the psychological states of A and Barack Obama. The thesis is about the psychological states of A because saying that someone knows something implies that they believe it, and belief is a psychological state. It's also about the world because saying that somebody knows something implies that it's true, that is to say knowledge is factive, so it's a thesis about the world as well. So here's an illustration. We have somebody here who thinks the following thought: I believe Barack Obama is the 44th US president, is the first African-American president, and so on. That's about psychological states. And 5 implies that the belief is justified a priori, since anyone who doesn't have this belief is not a competent user of Barack Obama. That's why 5 implies that this is justified a priori. So this is like a condition on the competence, being a competent user of a name. Okay. All right. We already talked about that. Now, thesis 6, the statement, if X exists, then X has most of the phi's expresses a necessary truth in the intellect of the speaker. Now, this is saying not just that sense fixes reference, but that senses give the meaning of names, or are the meanings of names, or something like this. So 6 requires that the proposition, if Barack Obama exists, then Barack Obama has most of the phi's, is a necessary truth. That is, 6 requires that necessarily Barack Obama has most of those properties. Put another way, in any possible world in which Barack Obama exists, he has most of those properties. You can't coherently talk about a world where some individual lacks most of the phi's and still is Barack Obama. Notice that this is a thesis about the referent of the name. It's not a thesis about the name. It's not a thesis about the psychological states of an agent. It's just a thesis about the thing itself, as it exists in every world in which it exists at all, including our own. So on the left here, you have our world, and you have Barack Obama, and he has these various properties, and we're going to suppose that these properties are the sense. They're the phi at issue. And over here, you have another possible world, and in this world, this guy, this very man, has a different set of properties. According to thesis 6, this isn't Barack Obama, and correspondingly isn't the person who our term Barack Obama refers to. Okay. Now the constraint on those theses. For any successful theory, the account must not be circular. The properties which are used in the vote must not themselves involve the notion of reference in such a way that it is ultimately impossible to eliminate. Now, that might sound confusing, but the idea is really simple. Suppose we have somebody here who says Einstein is brilliant, and this guy says who's Einstein, and now green is going to give the sense that green associates with Einstein, the phi, the properties. And green says, Einstein's the person who discovered the theory of relativity. And purple says, well, what's that theory? And then green says, it's the theory Einstein discovered. And suppose the idea goes that green can only give the following sense for Einstein, the person who discovered the theory of relativity, and can only give the following sense for the theory of relativity. It's the theory discovered by Einstein. Well, C would say, this is a no-go. This can't be the kind of properties that allow the name to have meaning. That is, to put another way, merely being able to associate discoverer of the theory with the name Einstein, and then the name Einstein with discoverer of the theory would not be sufficient to make green count as a competent user of the name, according to the theory. So one who identifies Barack Obama by the property of being US president can't then identify the property of being US president by saying it's the office held by Barack Obama. Okay, so now we have our theses. You can think of theses 1 to 4 as capturing most of Frege's view of names. 3 and 4 capture the idea that sense fixes reference for names, and 1 and 2 capture the idea that we can access senses and know those senses, and that those senses determine reference, and we can know that those senses determine reference. 5 adds that this all happens a priori, so 5 is like adding Frege's claim that we can grasp senses. Any competent user of a name can grasp its sense independent of perceptual experience. In principle, you could subtract 5 from the view, but I think Frege endorses 5. And finally, 6 adds that the connection between sense and reference is necessary. That is, to put it maybe a little more simply, 6 adds that senses give the meaning of names, not just fix the reference of names. Okay, there's a question why add 6, but let's just say that this kind of captures the traditional description theory of names in particular and reference in general. Okay, so we already talked about this. I'm not going to go through it again. Okay, we'll stop this video there, and in the next video, we'll start looking at Kripke's critique of this theory.